Well, it is going to be a scorcher today. So I was thinking about activity and exercise. Okay. I was just talking with a wonderful hero nurse practitioner client who's, gone through COVID, so intelligent, and she had all the diet training that I had. And I was talking to her about the differences in how we eat in the United States with the 6 tiny meals a day, high carb, fruits and vegetables. I eat kale with every meal, fruits and vegetables, and I'm not losing weight. Okay, something's wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with her. It's just that this isn't how any of our ancestors ate. This isn't how our bodies are meant to eat. Our bodies were meant to feast and fast, okay? We are like animals in our limbic brain. We are actually supposed to be full. You don't see animals in the wild just pick at their food and eat tiny meals. This is totally unnatural. And so this is the other thing too. So that's unnatural, okay? That's not natural, but that's how dietitians taught me to eat. I assumed this was based on real data and things, but again, I really encourage you to check out Pradeep Gymnatis, Jason Fung, Kendi Berry, Robert Sywis, Eric Berg. These YouTubers have really helped me with putting out the research. Okay, but this is really the crux of the matter. If you don't have time to enjoy and sit down and digest a meal, the best thing to do would be to skip that meal and have an emotional support beverage. Emotional support beverage, something without calories, without artificial sweeteners that raise your insulin, that will not hurt you. Okay, so in the morning, my emotional support beverage is a keto coffee or a bulletproof coffee. And David Asprey also helped me a lot. I love his YouTube and his material. So I start that, and that is a coffee with some fat in it. You can make it yourself with ghee, coconut oil, and there's lots of recipes on YouTube how to make bulletproof coffee. You can put some cacao in it, some cinnamon, and for me, my body's used to that. That's now my breakfast, okay? And then I break my fast. I might have pickles first. I might have sauerkraut first. Then I have a salad with some meat with fat on it. Or it might be salmon, or it might be an egg, but I have olive oil. I have you can have a keto dressing. And then, for dinner, I have some carbs at dinner, but I have to ration my carbs because I'm not eating carbs for nutrition. I'm eating carbs for pleasure because my body can make all that it needs from the vegetables, protein, and fat. Okay, really, that's all it needs. And, in the mid-90s, I was in medical school, and my ex-husband's family was in Uruguay. And I would be, learning all this stuff. Low fat, olive oil might be bad. Fat, meat, certainly bad. All these things are terrible. And you gotta eat tiny meals all day long with lots of carbs, lots of whole grain pastas and fruits and vegetables. Eat 6 meals a day, and then exercise a lot, and then you'll be fit. And so I would go between Ohio, where my med school was, and then I would go to Uruguay. And in Uruguay, what did they do? They ate meat with the fat on it. They ate lots of meat. They ate lots of salad. They did eat pasta, but their food was fresh. They didn't have a processed food. They didn't have any fast food. They didn't have a lot of soda. Soda was a luxury. That was not happening. And they didn't have like bread all day long. I mean, there was a very meat-heavy diet. And I had to wrap my head around the fact that these folks looked so much healthier than the folks in the Midwest. The economy in my country was so much better. But just because we had the best economy didn't mean we had the best food. In fact, because we had such a good economy, we could afford to do all these processed fast food things, not take time for our food, And so this is what my client asked me today. She said, well, but didn't they exercise a lot? Don't they exercise a lot in South America? And I was like, no, they didn't. Did my great grandparents in the 1950s exercise a lot? No, they went, walked dogs, got the newspaper. They were seamstresses, they were grocers. These were blue collar people who weren't at country clubs or playing tennis or anything, but yet they were effortlessly fit. Same like the people in South America in the 90s. The economy was rough. I mean, it was not a wealthy country, but it was like the United States was in the 1950s, pretty much. People were eating traditional foods. There was a lot of stigma, they would, on fast food, comida chatarra, crap food, right? So in English, it's just junk food, it's just junk, it's a crap food, trash food, so like women were pains in the butt in these countries. They were like, we're not giving up our ancestral food ways. I don't know what this food is. And, when I told my ex-mother-in-law that olive oil may be bad for us, she was like, I'm not, what? No. And the sad thing is, I look back on it too. I was terrified. She was feeding my my kids, butter, mayonnaise, high-fat foods. And I was really scared about them becoming, obese. And here I've struggled with obesity my whole life. And I thought what I was doing was going to help my kids. And in fact, the pediatricians backed me up over my ex-mother-in-law, over whole milk versus skim milk. I would say, you must have skim milk. Like, why are you having whole milk? And the tragedy is she said, what about vitamin D? What about vitamin D absorption? And I said, but honey, there's enough fat in the diet. You don't need fat in the milk. But the sick thing was, I was being taught that saturated fat was bad, and that the seed oil fats, the vegetable oils, were healthy. But in fact, the exact opposite is true. The saturated fat, the whole milk would have been so much preferable to the skim milk. The processed seed oils that I was replacing the olive oil with are now known to be inflammatory oils. They're not healthy. So again, old is gold. Our bodies knew olive oil, they knew butter, they knew coconut oil, they knew, avocados. These were fats, grass-fed beef. Oh, and the other thing, Uruguay versus the United States, our beef is corn-fed. Beef, that is not a natural food for cows. Cows do not naturally eat corn. Cows eat grass. And, if I told you, and some people are doing it, but if I told you to eat crickets and, there's research that crickets are healthy, you might go, wait, I don't know. Really? Okay. But we've done this to cows. There's no research that feeding cows was actually a healthy thing. And there is a difference in the profile of the fats from grass-fed meat versus corn-fed meat. And I remember them saying that, well, it's different because our meat is grass-fed. And I was like, oh, whatever. My med school's not teaching me any of that. I don't believe that. But now as I've lived and 30 years have passed, there's a saying in the Islamic world, don't tell me what you know, tell me how far you have traveled. And I think about that. When you travel to another country, when you look at another way of doing things, you kind of can't go back to how you used to think. And I had to kind of stuff this knowledge down because I thought, well, hey, how come all my medical societies, all these things are telling me low fat, 6 times a day eating, da-da-da. Anyway, so I've been a kind of a useful idiot in this system, and I've suffered. My health has suffered. My kids' health has suffered. And I know there's people out here suffering, saying, I'm eating fruits and vegetables. I'm eating kale with every meal. I'm eating 6 tiny meals a day. It's just about portion control. And I exercise all the time and I can't lose weight. Well, I want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that's a gaslight. It's what's wrong, what you've been through. And that is a gaslight about how any people have eaten in history. That isn't a normal, natural way of eating. It's not based on some benevolent science, because our great-grandparents did the science. Our grandparents did the science. Our grandparents knew how to feed a family. And to discard all that wisdom for, there's a study that you know, people can eat crickets and it's fine. And, you know, I'm like, okay, I would like to see people eat crickets for 20 years. There's no ancestral, let's celebrate the crickets dish in South America, that, you know, in Central America. That is a poverty food as far as I'm concerned. Maybe in 30 years it'll be great, but I'm not going to take that chance, because my life is now. My health is now. Your health is now. And again, there was nothing broken in the American diet that needed fixing. If I'm not going back to the 50s for everything, I don't, you know, we don't need the domestic violence and the alcoholism and the smoking. That wasn't good in the 50s, but boy, a lot was good in the 50s. My great grandparents looked like little models and movie stars in their 50s in the 1950s. Fast forward me, 2020, in my 50s, I look like hell, and I have a medical education. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you might consider subscribing to my channel. You know, and again, old is gold. You're a cactus living in a rainforest, and I hope you'll join me in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.